All right, friends, we're going to go ahead and ask you to find seats. Will you thumbs up me if the live stream is going? Fantastic. Thanks for hanging in with us. We know it is not cool here in the building. We are waiting on a part from the air conditioner for this side that, like all things right now, is back ordered for 2 months. So, eventually, we will have we have a half-cooled church right now. We'll have a fully cooled church hopefully soon. Yeah, we had several dorm rooms this week at UM Army when it was 107 degrees have their air conditioner go out. So that church had to, were prompted to upgrade their air conditioning really quickly. So thank you for coming. Thanks if you're joining us online. We are going to plan to make this pretty quick and really informational. We really just needed like 30 minutes for announcements in church, and we didn't have it. So we're going to have 30 minutes after church instead. Do you want to get us started? Or?
Sure.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. I'm Janet Allen. I am lay leader here, and Kevin DeBose, who is our church council chair, could not be here today. I'm sure he sends his best in his wonderful travels. There are a couple of things. You may have noticed how gorgeous the church looks. Yay! Security fence is down, and if you came in through the back, you could see into the rest of the building, and it's looking wonderful. We are not sure when we can actually move in, and the reason is we have to have occupancy permits from the city, and there are still some final things that need to happen. We hope that we can get in early August, but that's the contingency, is our certificate of occupancy, which we must take on.
Speaking of things that are back, the only reason we don't have it yet, so we scheduled this meeting because we were sure that by today we would have a date to give you of when we were moving back in, and lo and behold. There are a few things that are in short supply, and one of them is strobes for fire system. The little lights are somehow not being produced, and so we're trying to locate them. And I think we're close on that. And the elevator, so the elevator is required to have essentially a landline. And the type that elevators require, most phone companies don't even put in anymore. And so we're having to find workarounds. So those are really our two kind of holdout items before the city can come and inspect us. And we do not have, both of them are being actively hard worked on. We think we found a workaround for the phone line, because AT&T told us it would be 2 months to 6 months until we could get it, so we think we have found a workaround. And I have no idea on the strobe lights. We asked if we could borrow them from somebody whose building already has a permit and then give them back. But I'm told that's not allowed.
Seems a little awkward.
Right.
One of the things that I wanted to do early on is recognize the folks that have been involved from the very beginning in the restoration process. You could hear Pastor Emily and Pastor Katie conferring among themselves about the details. This has been a huge project for them, and I want to thank them in particular for the work that they've been doing. There have been some of us who have also been participating in this. Martin Murdoch is here today. He's been deeply involved in what we've come to call the GO team, which is basically a small group of leaders who have responded to the fire and what it was going to take to come forward. Thane Wyman, also on that team. Charles C. Nethery, who we miss dearly, she agreed to continue with this project even after her cancer diagnosis, and then subsequent to her death, we have thought about her at every meeting. Steve Ista, Mona Gibson, I'm not sure where she went. She's back there working. Oh, here she is. Lee Chenault.
Craig.
Craig Simons, of course. Craig Simons, who I thought I had already mentioned, who was in the very depth of the day-to-day. Want to make sure that everyone understands that it took a great amount of work from the planning to the implementation to bringing on construction workers to really thinking through every step of the way and while actually running a church. So thank you to you all.
Sure. Do you want to do this or me too?
Happy to.
Okay.
So with that said, the Go team had a very august group who looked at the financials of all of this. We obviously had insurance. The insurance paid out at the amount of $7.5 million, and that has been amazing and wonderful. The Texas Methodist Foundation extended a line of credit, if you may remember, to the church for anticipated borrowing if we need to. We think that we're only going to need to borrow a little bit because it's really turning out to the whole renovation about $10 million, all told.
That includes $2 million, so the initial reclamation with Blackman Mooring, if you remember back a million years ago before there was a pandemic and when we were all younger, Blackman Mooring was here, that was about a $2 million process. The actual reno is about $8.1 million. That's been through Bellows Construction, who's been working on that with us. So it is actually a traditional loan we have from TMF, but we are hoping not to have to borrow all of it.
And that's because there are a couple of things that are in the works around all of that. One of them has been a process that we'll talk a little bit more. It's about tax credits and this complicated thing that can allow us to sell tax credits to cover part of our reconstruction. And the other part that has allowed us to minimize the amount of dollars that we've needed has been this just tremendous work in recovery from the insurance companies. So it's just been really good work. Miriam Holt Powell, which is the architecture firm that worked with us in conjunction with Bellows, has helped us to work through this whole process, which I can talk about now. Are you all right? In terms of the tax credits? The way we got the tax credits is we were advised for receiving National Historic Designation. If we did that, we would start to be able to sell these tax credits. And so we now have National Historic Designation.
Yeah, so as of 2 weeks ago, St. Mark's building is on the National Register of Historic Places. If you notice, we have a marker on the building already. That is for the congregation that was established as Emmanuel, German Methodist Episcopal Church in 1875. The building distinction is a different one that allows us to qualify for this federal program that provides tax credit to historic building renovations.
And we can talk about that later. It seems complicated to me, but it's
very
great
complex.
For us.
We have a great consultant who has worked with us and really helped steward all of the paperwork. This is a federal designation. Some of you familiar with historic designations know that they can be really fraught. The State of Texas Historic Commission is particularly fraught, but they have had to approve us, and they have approved us. But now, because we have federal recognition and not state, we do not have to run every single renovation we ever want to do for the history of forever by them. The federal system is a little more hands-off once you've got the designation than the state. It's about 25% of qualifying expenses that you can get tax credits for. Unfortunately, anything covered by the insurance is not considered a qualifying purchase, but we think we're going to be able to demonstrate the finances in such a way that we could see anywhere from $600,000 to $800,000, maybe even a little bit more, in tax credits that we'll be able to use to immediately pay down that Texas Methodist Foundation loan.
So one of the things that you may see in the building is some familiar sights and some things that may make you say, And the reason is we had some changes planned for the building that really wasn't in keeping with what a historic building might need to have. So basically, the public areas needed to look substantially as it did when it was built. So you may see some changes in the flooring that would make you say, Wonder what that's about? There's a certain type of flooring that was in keeping with what would comply with historic designation. Similarly, there may be a hallway or a wall or two that you would think, wonder why that's still here. Historic designation put that in motion for us, and
Yes.
we love that.
Hallways are
hallway now.
historic. Who knew?
So all that said, we believe that we'll be able to occupy the building in August. And all that said is that we know that we are going to have some work to do to make sure that everything is in place. We're having a facility use process that we're working on. It's going to be very important that our small groups are on our calendar. The reason is we have specific areas that we can shoot air conditioning and heating to based on if we know that you're there. So there's an opportunity for efficiency related to that. There's also, other aspects of the coding of the doors and the ability to move in and out. So all small groups will need to be on our calendar. Excellent news, many of our small groups have become accustomed to Zoom now and can't imagine conducting any kind of Bible study without it. And all of our rooms are now hybrid ready. In person or Zoom will be just fine in those meetings. There's one caveat. If those of us that work in areas that have conference rooms with a camera in it, you may have noticed in some conference rooms, there's a camera that will move to the speaker. We're only going to have 1 or 2 rooms that will be like that. If you're part of a small group that would like to have that, we encourage you to fundraise to purchase your own camera that will move to do that.
Yeah, every room will have the basics. Somebody can just bring an iPad that hooks to the TV that does the basics, but if you want the upgraded system, it costs a little more money, and we'll ask classes who want those to pay for those. Other groups will schedule with us. All of our former community groups had to depart after the fire, and some of them have settled in happily at their new locations, but some of them may want to come back, and we hope that the space will be a resource for the community. So we'll be doing some community outreach once our policies and procedures are all set. I should have said at the beginning, and I didn't. If you have questions about anything, if you still have your bulletin, it's on the back, or you can type linktree.com/St. Mark's into your browser. It's like the 4th thing down on our Linktree is the question submission form. So you can submit them, and I have it going up here, and we'll try to hit what we can. But so far, no questions. Okay, so the next thing is what on earth is going on in the United Methodist Church. I know that, to varying degrees, we are aware of things going on in the United Methodist Church that have been going on for a while, and I know it made news, and some of you may have friends that go to other United Methodist churches, about the Global Methodist Church launching on May 1st. So there's been a lot of talk about split in the United Methodist Church. I don't like that language. It's really more of a splinter. With these changes in process that have gone into place, there's a number of particularly hardline traditionalist folks going either to the Global Methodist Church that just launched, but a number of them also going into the Free Methodist Church, and an even larger number going independent and becoming their own independent churches. So if you have friends in other United Methodist churches, they may be talking about a discernment process. The annual conference is holding meetings to talk about that for churches that are considering departing from the United Methodist Church.
So it's important to note that as far as St. Mark's United Methodist Church goes, we've had no indication of a need or desire to discern moving to a different denomination or going independent. We have had some discussion and request to consider becoming a reconciling congregation. And the reconciling congregation is a signal to our community that we are fully welcoming and inclusive and believe in our LGBTQ family participating fully in the life of our church. And there will be some more discussions and discernment to become a reconciling congregation. There's more steps that we'll need to do, which includes listening to one another, at listening posts that we will be scheduling in August. So watch for some announcements about that. Other aspects about how the United Methodist Church, other churches are discerning their participation in denominations has really not affected us.
Yeah, I mean, so the commonly asked question is, are we going to need to take a vote at some point? The answer to that right now is no. Like Janet said, we have no desire to go independent. There's a lot of loss that would happen with that for a number of things. Obviously, because our practice is to welcome all people, we are not very interested in going to the GMC. So this really isn't a conversation that as of right now is going to impact St. Mark's in a deep way. But we do want you to know what's going on with it in case people ask you, or just we don't want you to hear a thing and think, oh, are we not even, it's not that we're not dealing with it, it's that we sort of have dealt with it. So this has been going on a long time. I can really nerd out for y'all on the history of this, but we haven't eaten, so I'm not going to. But like, if you want to like really dive deep, like there are curiously well-funded organizations that planted the seeds of this splintering back starting the year I was born. So my entire lifetime have been funneling money and power into this particular division. And so while it is grievous, obviously, that it has come to this and that we can no longer live together, we hope that the Spirit will continue to be at work in the ways that we are apart, and it will allow all of us a deeper freedom to be the people that God has called us to be. And so that will be true for us, and we hope it will be true for our siblings who choose a different path. Sorry.
That's okay.
I should have set this to, stay awake for more than 30 seconds. So this is a question about we forgot to talk about what our favorite thing about the new building is, and I think we should.
Okay.
It's a question about the building. This one is about, will the Wi-Fi be stronger, especially outside? The Wi-Fi will be so much stronger, and it will be in the whole building. There are Wi-Fi ports all over the building. What are those things called? I don't remember, but it's everywhere. All of the systems are drastically upgraded. Janet referred briefly to the air conditioning system. We have some space-age air conditioning system that each has its own. It has way less maintenance because there's not filters. It's called a VRF system. We're very excited about it. That's not the thing I'm most excited about, I don't think, but it is up there. I never would have thought that I would care so much about HVAC, but it's a surprisingly big part of my life. I think I'm most excited about the ramp that you can see. I hated that lift that was there. So if you remember the lift, I hated that thing with a fiery passion. Because most of our people who really needed it were scared to get on it because it got stuck all the time. And so it's really not promoting accessibility if the people who need the accessibility can't get it. Do you have a favorite?
Well, you took mine, but actually just going by the one that just brought tears to my eyes is the youth room. I'm very excited about that youth room. I might choke up just telling you about it. It's really wonderful. And yeah.
We knocked out those walls. Remember, it used to be 3 rooms. Now it's one big room, so there's windows on 3 sides. The ceiling is raised. It is. Katie, do you have a favorite part?
I'm surprised as it gets closer that this is my favorite part because I don't think early in the process that it was, but every time I walk through the building right now, I'm just so excited about the classrooms because we haven't had people meeting here in such a long time, and I miss being able to walk through on Sunday mornings and see what the new pilgrims are reading and talk to the men's class and have all of the different groups gathering in their space. So even though they're not very deeply impressive or state of the art, I'm just really excited to have classroom spaces for all of our groups, and it makes me really, really happy. And then also, they actually took where my former office is. They took the paper off in the balcony, so the room that is right up there will now be a cry room, and there's a TV in there that will have the worship service streamed in there. So if we have families that have little ones that need a little bit of space during the service, they can go there and not be completely separate from the service, and I'm excited about that part too.
It's a good place for a sneak peek. Obviously, there are several sneak peeks now, right here where you came in. If you came in from the back, up in the balcony, you can see in. And then if you go peek in the basement windows outside, the basement is where I teared up going in for the first time. It is gorgeous. It's gorgeous. It's bigger, it's expanded. We took the stage in a little and pushed, the scout room is now behind the stage, which means we got more space in that corner, so it holds more people. It is beautiful. And we think we don't have any water coming into it, which, is a first. So, okay, we have a couple more questions. Another one about the building is, will there be a special fundraiser for the remaining expenses? Yes. So we're hoping that the tax credit, so the tax credit process, because we're now on the historic register, the tax credit process once the building is done is pretty short. 1 to 2 months once we can get it going, once we're approved and all of that. It's relatively quick. So we hope that in pretty short order we'll have a good sense of exactly how much we're still going to owe and how best to approach paying for that. So it's likely we'll have a similar campaign to Build the Love, where we sort of talk about what remains to be done, but we hope it'll be a manageable enough amount that at least for a few months, the budget will just pay for it, and we'll work on paying it down, and then have that campaign for what we hope will be the last just little bit of it. So remains to be seen, but we're really on pretty good track. I should mention, as we thank people, that Carmen, Velez, and Thane, the reason our insurance payout was a little higher than it was initially is that they were, if you've heard the parable of the unjust judge, they simply kept going to the insurance company until they approved a higher amount. And so they did incredible work on that. Mona Gibson had been trustees chair and did incredible work to get them to revalue the space. And we had done all the work we needed to do on our end, and it was sitting on someone's desk there at the time of the fire and had not yet been put in place. And so that's why we were able to get a little bit more. So yes, a campaign will happen, probably not this year, but probably next year. Will we be keeping the house next door? Not sure. In a lot of ways, we'd really love to. It may be something financially we just need to get off our books. That house is covered by a loan, and so if we need to sell it in order to, keep things going, we will. The church council will talk about that, and we'll have a vote just like we did when we bought it to decide what to do with it. Update on the organ, as it is still in its boxes. Its start date for getting put in is August 1st. And once it starts getting put in, how long, Wes? He said 3 months, something like that?
Anywhere from 6 weeks to 3 months. The timeline was Thanksgiving.
Finish date for Thanksgiving. So hopefully starts August 1st. They've already done some work up in the chamber to be ready to put it in. So hopefully we'll get our giant crates out of here and get Bill back up at the organ where he likes to be and where we like him to be. So I think the rest of these are more related to Methodist church stuff. So what does this mean for ordination of LGBTQ pastors and weddings for LGBTQ couples? So the United Methodist Church's discipline is not changing with the departure of the GMC. It can only be changed by an act of General Conference. And General Conference will not meet. So the reason all of this started happening super fast is that the General Conference in 2020 was canceled because of COVID. And they were going to try to do it, push it just a little bit later, and then ultimately decided we couldn't have it. And so the next one will be in 2024. So nothing in the discipline can change until 2024. I will say that in other areas of the country, basically all other areas in the country besides this one, this is recorded, maybe I shouldn't speak so candidly. There is an abeyance in place on charges being brought on pastors for doing weddings, for ordaining gay clergy. And so a lot of places they're operating as though that's true. It is our bishop and I believe 2 others in the entire connection of the United Methodist Church who said they would not participate in the abeyance and they would continue to bring charges against clergy. Yes? So he is retiring in December and we will get a new bishop, and I think the hope is that under the new bishop, the abeyance that is in place in all other places will be in place here. So there's tons of LGBTQ clergy serving throughout the connection that are serving openly under the abeyance. Here, it's just, we are in a really particular place here in Texas. So yeah, we hope that that will change sooner than 2024 for us, and that the discipline will then change in 2024. Is there a time frame from the United Methodist Church for how long we'd be allowed to stay reconciling? Once you're reconciling, my understanding is you just are, and that's sort of it forever. And for my money, I don't know about yours, even if the discipline changes, like there's still good things about that. Like being there's still good reason to be a reconciling church, even in a church that doesn't have these discriminatory practices in place.
And one of the most poignant one is our signal to the rest of the community of who we are. The rest of the community does not automatically know who St. Mark's United Methodist Church is. So for those that have had problems in previous churches, they just don't know how welcoming we can be. And so that's one of the things that is really a true benefit.
Mm-hmm. And if you do get that distinction, you're on this list of churches, and both the churches that I have served in the Texas Annual Conference have practiced as though they were reconciling but haven't been reconciling, and there's a real benefit to being on that list because, some of you know this, you are LGBTQ Christians. That is something that people look for. And so I think there's a real benefit to it. We'll obviously discuss it more, but I think there's a benefit to it regardless. So my understanding is if we became reconciling, that's just who we would be. I think that is all the new questions. Okay, we have one more thing to talk about, and we're almost at 30 minutes, so.
One more announcement is related to the business structure of the church. Those of us that have been in the United Methodist Church for a long time know about all the committees that we have. And one of the things, there are some committees that are required by the Book of Discipline. But they don't really, there's roles that are required in the Book of Discipline, but they don't really specify how you organize yourself to achieve those roles. Trustees, finance, staff parish relations are 3 big ones that are very clear in our Book of Discipline, which is our organizational document for the United Methodist Church. The Church Council, as I mentioned, chaired by Kevin DuBose, has been discussing moving to a one-board structure. The idea being there is one church council that tends to all of the items that are on the docket for the church in one meeting. I, as lay leader, think that's a great idea because you may know that lay leaders attend all those committees. I may be biased. There will be a church conference that will be held as we normally do, and at that conference, this one board model will be recommended, and as usual, those that have been nominated for the various roles will be before the church when we have that conference.
Mm-hmm. I've gotten a lot of questions about, is this a weird thing to do? Are we going rogue? Actually, most of my friends' churches have already gone to this model. It's just much more effective and efficient in a modern church, right, than having to find 60 people to serve on committees. And what our hope is that it will free people for other ministry. So alongside it, we'll create a collection of ministry teams that while the nominations committee may recruit for them, you can also join them anytime and anyone can join them, and they'll handle the ministry of the church, like missions and discipleship and care team and worship team and all of those things. And yeah, we hope it will free more people for ministry. Not that administrative work isn't ministry. I do a lot of administrative work, but we want to free as many people as we can for other kinds of ministry, and we think this will do that.
And so there are going to be remaining leadership teams, obviously, for the various ministries, and some that come to mind are those with children and youth. Our care team are some examples, our worship team that works so hard here. And then an opportunity for task forces as needs arise. So a little bit more flexibility around all that.
Anything else? Oh, yes. So I don't 100% understand it either, but here's what I do understand, is that essentially, so how do tax credits work for a church when we don't pay taxes? Which is a very reasonable question to have. We will receive those credits and are able to sell them to financial entities who will use them. And so they basically purchase them at their value.
Martin, are you? Oh, okay. So we have participated in some meetings around all of that. There is a whole world out there of entities that exchange tax credits, and it's not a stock market. It's like a stock market where there are buyers and sellers, and you just go out there and you indicate that that's what you have, and then you have someone that purchases that.
One of the processes we're in right now is choosing a broker who will get us the best possible return. Yeah, we're working with the consultant on that. Exactly. No, the buyer can be anybody.
So there's been a good bit of discussion outside of the microphone. I'm going to try to just summarize. No, thank you. Frank Eldridge is our treasurer, and obviously for a very good reason. What he is saying is that there are organizations that have a large tax bill that would be interested in purchasing a lower tax bill. The government allows this precisely to facilitate the kind of work that we're doing. So it is a way for the government to encourage historic restoration while also offering a benefit to some of these companies. And he gave some examples.
JP Morgan.
JP Morgan being one. Yeah, a bank.
Nice. Large corporations that have a big tax bill, but also assets where they could purchase this. Yes, this is going to be our last question from the floor, and then I'm going to invite you to submit online. Oh, great.
Hi, and maybe we've said this, but the whole thing is we're a non-taxable entity.
Right.
So we have these tax credits for historical designation that we can't use, so they're valuable to somebody else.
Exactly. And we actually have a member of the community, I don't think they're official members of the church, who he's also advising us. He works for an organization that does this frequently. So it's pretty normal. A couple other churches in the area have done it, and our architecture firm actually helped us come to this because they've done it before, which also means they know how to do it, which is great. Like, we have had to do just precious little to make this happen, and it has been a glorious, glorious thing. We've also learned really cool stuff. I said I was going to wrap up, but we've learned really cool stuff. I didn't know that the original Emmanuel Methodist Church that we trace our roots to, so it was a church full of German immigrants, and it started downtown. There was no Heights when it started. It wasn't a thing. It is on the site of the current Minute Maid Park. Just a fun fact. So Astros fans, you have heritage there. So lots of fun things like that. Yeah, I don't think we've gotten any more questions on the form, and it is 12:35. These are the main things we wanted to tell you. If you haven't met Jenny yet, Pastor Jenny's right here. We're so excited. Pastor Jenny is with us in partnership with FAM. Also, Pastor Katie's title is changing. Pastor Katie has been our pastor to children, youth, and families. She's still going to be that, but she's also doing adult discipleship stuff. So she's just going to be our pastor of discipleship, all age levels, all things. A title more in line with what she already does. So, yeah, we're excited about all those staff things. Everybody else, I think, is good. We've had a pretty stable staff for a long time, and I'm very grateful. We miss Sydney, our youth director, who is on maternity leave this summer, but we look forward to baptizing Everett in like 3 weeks or something, 4 weeks. So we're very excited about that. I don't think there's other news. Do you have other news?
I have no other news.
Well, thank you all for staying in the hot sanctuary a little bit longer. We appreciate it, and continue to submit questions. So we'll be putting out other information as things draw closer. We'll be having those listening posts. So there's going to be other opportunities for us to discuss this. Obviously, this is the kind of meeting, especially once we have one board, we're going to want to have more often to be able to gather with more people and get feedback and provide information on all of that. Hopefully we will have a beautifully air-conditioned space where we could have a meal and have roundtable discussions. And we will be able to do that just so soon. But thank you for staying. Go peek at the building before you leave, through the window or through the openings here or around the sides. And blessings on your week, friends. Thank you so much. Thanks to our online friends as well. Go in peace.